Good evening, listeners, brave navigators of the enigmatic and the concealed. Have you ever felt the pull of the unanswered, the allure of the mysteries that shroud our existence? For more than a decade, a unique comic publisher has dared to dive into these mysteries, unafraid of the secrets they might uncover. This audacious entity is Paranoid American. Welcome to the mystifying universe of the Paranoid American podcast.
Launched in the year 2012, Paranoid American has been on a mission to decipher the encrypted secrets of our world. From the unnerving enigma of MK Ultra mind control to the clandestine assemblies of secret societies. From the awe-inspiring frontiers of forbidden technology to the arcane patterns of occult symbols in our very own pop culture. They have committed to unveiling the concealed realities that lie just beneath the surface. Join us as we navigate these intricate landscapes, decoding the hidden scripts of our society and challenging the accepted perceptions of reality.
Folks, I've got a big problem on my hands. There's a company called Paranoid American making all these funny memes and comics. Now, I'm a fair guy. I believe in free speech as long as it doesn't cross the line. And if these AI-generated memes dare to make fun of me, they're crossing the line.
This is your expedition into the realm of the extraordinary, the secret, the shrouded. Come with us as we sift through the world's grand mysteries, question the standardized narratives, and brave the cryptic labyrinth of the concealed truth. So strap yourselves in, broaden your horizons, and steel yourselves for a voyage into the enigmatic heart of the Paranoid American podcast, where each story, every image, every revelation brings us one step closer to the elusive truth.
Look at that. The chat's already popping, so you know this is going to be a good live. And Ani was already pre-gaming way too hard, so I had to just start. He started dropping some stuff that I'd never even heard before, and I think it's going to make this way more interesting than I could have alone. So, first of all, what are we doing here? I'm going to be, for the next 3 weeks, maybe more, I'm going to be trying to do at least 1 or 2 live streams every single week about some kind of movie about the moon landing, in particular fake moon landing or fake NASA programs. So I want to watch all the different movies and do some decodes with some of my best friends. And one of those good friends is Ani Usaru. You've seen him on here a few different times, but give yourself some shout outs and tell people where they can find you if they're not already watching on your channel.
What's going on with your brother? Shout out to the channel. It's great to be back on your platform, bro. They can find me at YouTube, Ani Osaru, or you can go to Instagram, the Spiritual Shade Room 1. I post a lot of information on there. And mainly these days, we're on Patreon. You go to patreon.com/THE_spiritual shade room. You will get a lot of great information on esotericism, decodes like this, and other information.
Yeah, and shout out to all the Patreons. They really are kind of like what makes all this smooth over a little bit. When you get hit with those strikes, or you get hit with the, your X account's been disabled or whatever, Patreon usually helps fill those gaps. So shout out to all Ani's Patreons and my Patreons. And yeah, anything we can do to make Patreons better. I'm actually starting to send out some free sticker packs to my Patreons, trying to always level that up. So me and you should do a collab on some sticker packs or something. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. We were first talking, and it sounded like you've never seen Capricorn 1 before now. So what did you think about it?
Well, I like looking at new things, especially sometimes looking at the older films. So I look at it as a challenge to look at certain things that people may have not seen, especially if it's an older film. But I notice a lot of things to what I've been saying when it comes to them covering up aspects with hiding how they present things to public. Like a lot of times when I say this type of stuff, people look at me and say, why would they do that? Or what is the reason to why they would cover some of this stuff up, especially something like going out to space, and faking a Mars or moon landing. And it goes back. The guy in the movie really nailed it. How Holbrook character was saying, well, some people don't have nothing to inspire to, so even though we didn't, I think he was saying they didn't have enough funding, some funding pulled out. So the astronauts would have died within like 3 weeks if they would have continued with the mission.
Yeah, I got a couple direct quotes that you're talking about. So
Oh.
I guess as a preface, for anyone that hasn't ever seen Capricorn 1, we're obviously going to be doing all sorts of, spoilers for it. Although, if you haven't seen it by now, it came out in like the 70s or something, then, you've been waiting long enough. We're just going to break it all down. So at the very beginning of the movie, you've kind of got this government character, and he's talking to the astronauts, and he kind of represents the man, right? He represents the system and the CIA and the NSA and just anyone involved. He's kind of the one middleman that we have as the audience watching this. And he's saying people are calling up networks and they're complaining about all these different moon missions that, aren't either coming to fruition, or they always say they're going to do something and it doesn't happen, and that people are starting to lose interest, and not just in the space program, but like you were just saying, that the American people as a whole just don't have anything left to believe in. The war is kind of long gone, so they're looking for this next big motivation to keep just like not the space program, but the entire country kind of in a momentum. And he says, the nice people from Con Amalgamate deliver a life support system, but they found out 2 months ago that it won't work. You guys would all be dead in 3 weeks. It's as simple as that. So this is the underlying premise of the movie, is that people are already somewhat predisposed to being disappointed and critical of the space program, and by proxy, the American government. And they can't afford to lose any more morale on the American public. But they also know that they are about to, launch a incredible failure of a moon landing, or a Mars landing rather, and that all the money and all the promo that they've invested over the last however many years is all going to just fall on its face, and they might not be able to come back for it. They might shut down the whole space program, and then everything that would derive from that. So that's the underlying premise of this movie, is that they know going in that they would die if they actually had to launch the mission. So therefore, they decide they're going to fake the whole Mars mission.
And I thought it was interesting this year that OJ Simpson passed on April 10th. And this is right around the times of the trials, I believe. Isn't this right around the time of the trials? I think it's 1980 or 1979 or something like that. Got to look at my notes. So a lot of people I noticed were surprised. He was still able to continue and do this, film. But I thought his character was very interesting, even going back to how Holbrook, his name equals 33 in the Gematria ciphers. So he's the perfect guy to be the head of this operation. And I noticed that the name of the shuttle was Saturn V Apollo. And Apollo is connected to Abaddon. If you look up the history of Apollo, it's a destroyer energy. It's the energy of war and destruction. It's connected with Mars, Abaddon. And I think their job was to, in correlation with Saturn, the name of the shuttle was to destroy the concept, secretly, without nobody knowing, that you could actually leave this firmament. And people still believe, more people believe than not, that we have left the firmament plenty of times. But I thought it was odd, speaking to some of my family members, if we ever went out of the firmament, let's just say just the moon, why haven't we set up a camera that your common family could just turn on the TV channel and flick to the channel on, daily news on what is happening on the moon? Wouldn't that be $1 billion company just to place a camera on the moon, place a camera on Mars, these places that Elon is saying that we're here. We got probes, we got all types of stuff. rovers driving around on these surfaces of these planets, but they seem never to be innovative business-wise in doing anything with that. So I always found that odd since I was younger. And this movie just proves that they will go to the extreme lengths to present to the public that they've done something that they've never done.
I have to agree with you 1,000,000% because I've got a similar thought on a lot of different phenomenon. But if it's, and I know how much of a horrible capitalist saying this might come across as, but if it's real, then someone can make money off of it. So I also am wondering, like, how come there's not a lunar lander that somebody puts up there that you can go and spend $100 a minute or something to drive it around? You can be like, I mean, you'll be controlling it from your home, right? But you could go to some website and for X dollars for whatever time, you can actually drive the lunar lander and cameras and everything, and or hell, like project little advertisements on the moon and stuff. It
Right.
seems that would all be very much within possibility right now. But I'm not completely on or off the fence on whether the moon's real or that the Earth is flat or spherical or any of that. But it does seem so damn fishy that there's not more motivation to keep going back and to keep using like more information about it and commercialize it. Like, how come we don't have billboards on the moon? How come I can't look up at it and see
Right.
the big like Samsung logo or like, you know, whatever the new movie's coming out, they just project it up there. And that's a hyperbole, obviously, but there's versions of that could exist, yet they don't.
Right. And the one thing I immediately learned about the movie is that they took this strip from this guy named Bill Casing. He actually wrote a book called "We Never Went to the Moon," and basically he got some of the concepts of Capricorn 1, like in his book. It said that at the end, he had 2 helicopters chasing the astronauts. He also put in the book that the astronauts were under MK Ultra. You know, he went to the extreme. He said there were active ectoplasmic forces following him, unknown entities. After he wrote this book and came out with the lawsuit, the class action lawsuit, they ended up giving him some credit for the movie, and his books became more popular. I think there was a film made out of one of Bill Casing's books, but it just proves that sometimes the elite can see something interesting of a concept, they can extract it, they can make it a little bit believable and loony, because if you watch the film, the ending of the film, no way they make it like, guy hanging off an airplane, military helicopters with weapons armed, and somehow they make it to the guy's funeral, Brew Baker's funeral, while they're filming on the news to let the whole world know that this is a fake Mars landing, and they tried to sacrifice these 3 astronauts to keep the lie going.
That's a really interesting moment in the movie too, when you realize that everybody knows, at least the 3 astronauts, they know that they're in on it. They know that they're not going to be sent out and they have to pretend that they're going on this mission. And as they're as everyone's watching the TV and you see the government announce that there was a problem during re-entry and the heat shield separated, and that unfortunately everybody inside has now died. And that right there was such a like an eye-opening way of like how practical and easy this kind of false propaganda programming could really work, is that just announcing that these people are dead, now everyone just accepts it and they start the grieving process and everything, and they're not dead, they're in the next room, and they don't even know that their own death has been announced, although one of the guys starts piecing it all together and starts telling them, hey, they're going to announce that something went wrong. They'll probably say the heat shield peeled. Like, we actually have to escape this room right now. Something's off about this. And it's such like a high level assassination, right? Like, they actually killed them before they actually killed them, which I don't know. I thought that there's so many different deep levels to that sort of a threat.
And it goes back to when they say people are dead. Do we know that they are actually dead and when they die? We have to question everything when it comes to this country with the synarchy, what's aligned with it. Another thing I noticed, this all was around NASA, which in Hebrew, NASA translates into serpent and great lie or deceiver. And I have more on that once I get into my decode, later on. But notice that Brubaker, the main character played by, what is his name? James Brolin. He has to eat a serpent to survive. He literally
That's him on the
eats
right
it.
here. Brubaker's the one on the right. He's
Yeah.
kind of like the captain of the three in the crew.
Yes. And his wife is the one that's connected to the reporter who's trying to get the story out that her husband sent her a message live on television when speaking to her, lying about their last vacation spot. And really their last vacation spot was about a fake cinematography about cowboys or something like that. So when he asked his wife to see what they did in Flat Rock, the actual vacation spot that the family went that he lied about, he figures out that it was a clue because the film that they made was about all of these cameras filming this fake thing. So he was trying to insert there to his wife to look back at our last vacation, and that's what's actually going on with this moon landing. But he actually eats a serpent to survive when they're running from the military or whoever, Black Lodge type people trying to kill these people off. He has to survive by eating a serpent, and NASA literally in Hebrew translates to serpent.
That very end point was a huge moment in the movie too, and you could tell that it was important because as he's delivering this message to his wife, and the preface, why was he even giving her this secret message? Well, it was because he starts to have second thoughts, and it was weird. Like he starts having these moral thoughts about I can't look my kid in their eyes when they say, where are you going, daddy? You're going to Mars, and just lying to their kid and lying to their wife about all this. So he starts telling his crewmates, hey, I think I'm going to say something. Next time they put us on a live feed, I'm going to break the news. I'm going to tell them that this is all fake. And for whatever I don't know why he says that in this environment, because obviously there's somebody listening, and then they report it to the government dude, and they tell him, hey, this guy's having second thoughts. So that kind of set in motion the whole idea that now they're going to take these guys out so that they can't tell anyone. But it also made me wonder, wouldn't they have just done that anyways? Like, even if he hadn't suggested that he was having second thoughts, it still seems it would have been way easier to just tie up all those loose ends and never even have to worry about it.
Right. And one thing I also noticed is that Brubaker equals 33 in Gematria. James Brolin's birthday, which is on July 18th, the movie was released on June the 2nd, 1978. His birthday would have been exactly 46 days. I mean, the movie would have been exactly 46 days released before this guy's birthday. And his name in the period cipher, James Brolin's name, who plays Brubaker, his name equals 46. And the movie is released exactly 46 days before his July 18th birthday. And going back to the director of the movie, Peter Hyams, who stole the strip from the other guy, the runtime of the movie is exactly 123 minutes. And the movie is released 1 month and 23 days before Peter Hyams' birthday. So it's real synchronistic to how they have these people involved and how they select who's going to be involved with these certain films of showing you what's actually going on.
Yeah, I didn't even think to start looking into all the directors and the actors and their synchronicity with all this. And it makes sense that it all kind of matches up. And I guess one of the characters too, is OJ Simpson. He's sort of one of the more notable characters in here, along with this dude in the background. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's from Law and Order. A lot of people probably recognize him from that when he was, a bit older. He had like the gray hairs, but OJ Simpson is sort of top billing in this movie, even though he doesn't have that many lines. The whole movie really seems to be about Brubaker, the government guy, and his wife, and a little bit of interspersed dialogue between other people, but it's really very light on OJ's actual role in this.
Yeah, I bet you today a lot of people will say DEI hire. I can see that somebody just float around saying that.
Maybe, although he started to have some star power just from, I think, his charisma, and like he was very easy on the camera, right? He knew how to work that camera in such a way. But I think once they started throwing him into these Hollywood movies, I mean, not like in a pro OJ way necessarily, but man, he was at his peak in the Naked Gun movies. I think that he probably could have rode that one if he hadn't done other things with his life.
Yeah, and this is in the height of the trial, and I think that brought some more viewers to the movie as well with having him in that film. And he plays a character named Jack Walker, who equals 67 in Gematria. It's funny because Capricorn 1 equals 67 in the Pyrrhic cipher, and sacrifice equals 67, and that's what they did to him and the guy behind him. They both didn't make it out. They were in the same place as Brubaker, but the helicopters or whoever, this secret group of people trying to find the astronauts and kill them off so the story can look real. They didn't make it, unfortunately. But yeah, definitely they was bringing sensationalism with OJ. And I really don't believe that he killed those people. There's no way, to me looking at the evidence, with the injuries he sustained in the NFL, that he was able to kill two people with no marks, no scratches on his face. And
what do you think about the theory that it was his son? Have you heard about that one?
Yeah, I don't think it was his son, because he was attending his daughter's play. Like, it's all documented in the case if you follow it. He was attending his daughter's play earlier this day. So what is motive? He just decides to go and kill his ex-wife from years ago. He was divorced from her for about 2 or 3 years by then. I'm gonna just go up and just kill her. They didn't never get the motive right. The guy that was on the case, I forgot the name of the police officer, admitted in court through Jimmy Cochran that he's planted evidence on black men before. I forgot the name of Mike Furman, somebody.
Mark Furman, yeah. And he actually had like some, even deeper than that, he had some legit sort of ties to very, very right-wing nationalism.
Yeah, and he was definitely tied in with that. And also the what was the name of his wife? Nicole Kidman. She was known.
Nicole Simpson, yeah.
Nicole Simpson, I'm sorry. She was known to be going to this bar near the area. I forgot the name of the bar, but her and the other guy that was killed was going to this bar, and this bar was very, very much known to have like drug deals, coke deals. So maybe they were murdered because they didn't pay a drug bill. And there was 2 more of her friends that I think she worked there. She worked at the bar, but 2 more of her friends who were bartenders were killed as well. Never reported, but they were killed the same way as her. Never reported, but I think they weren't paying these drug bills, and OJ made them a lot of money. Let's get the black guy. He's a big time athlete. He's big time Negro. He's big. So let's make money. And you know how much these books made of people writing on this guy? I'm talking millions of dollars that featured him as the killer, and now in everybody's mind. I think it's the same thing as Capricorn 1 in a different way, that they can put this thought, implement this seed in the mind of something being real. And the average person you ask today will make a common joke that OJ did it, You know, it's just a common joke. You know, and really, I don't think the guy could have did it. I don't think it's possible, even in the time frame. They said it was like 20 minutes. And to get on the other side, get in the white Bronco and get back to the airport, then make it with nothing on his clothes and the gloves didn't fit. It's just a whole, you know, it's obvious that it was fake.
Well, it was one of the weirdest, huge anomalies, and in retrospect, it was such a massive, massive distraction that permeated every single age group and culture and everything. Like I remember at the time that the OJ Simpson trial was going on, pogs were big. Like this was kind of peak pog area. And one of the biggest things is that almost everybody had an OJ slammer pog. And it was just like a OJ inside. And it wasn't like these things were necessarily mass produced and like sent out everywhere. It was just that it became such a common meme about the OJ Simpson trial, and that it was a joke that he was guilty, and that this became in products, right? All of a sudden, companies of all sorts started making products of OJ as the premise of him being guilty, which just, it's such a weird thing to latch on. And of all the things going on in the 90s, that was one of the things that latched everybody's attention and gave birth to whole industries of things just making fun of this meme. And this is like pre-meme territory.
Yeah, and look what this is, the birth of the Kardashian fame. This is real ritual magic.
Right.
Kardashians don't even be known without this
You're
tape.
100% right. So if there was like a transference of energy here, it seems like all that energy from the eyeballs on the OJ Simpson case somehow got stored in like a big capacitor, like a battery for the Kardashian family, and then they sat on it for 10 years figuring out how to unleash it, and then bam, all of a sudden it's like this big resurgence. But I always think about that too. Like, would there even be a Kardashian show and family? And would Bruce Jenner have turned into Caitlyn Jenner if it weren't for the OJ trial?
Yeah, and then their infatuation with, you know, melanated men, you know, going further, you know, the circus going further with it, connected with these high profile melanated men like OJ. And also the interesting thing is they still got the guy. They got him for stealing his own stuff. That's why he went to jail. Later on, he
Right. He
stole
went to go to
his
his Heisman Trophy, right?
It was something. It was a couple of things from college. It wasn't just that. I think it was Heisman and some other stuff. And he took it back because somebody took it from him, and they arrested him for stealing his memorabilia. So he got arrested for, yeah. So yeah, say trial of the century. This is like the biggest case in America's history. Like literally, this is the biggest case ever in America's history in the minds of memorists and American memory. And it's Looney Tune with the evidence of people believing that the guy did it. And I think he was just used to project this new industry of reality television and hoaxes and all the type stuff. Even with the mimetic magic, it's all tied in synchronistically to controlling the narrative and making people think what they want you to think.
And some of the reasons why the people in this movie, they kind of get coerced into it. So I get the impression that none of the astronauts want anything to do with this program. But when he basically says, well, what if we say no? You tell them there's a device on the plane that their families are on. And
Yeah.
the implication is, even if that plane lands fine, that if anything gets out of line, that's the ultimate threat. Is it's not just these guys are going to get taken out, but their families will get taken out. So that sort of begins this whole entire thing. And this is another really interesting one, is when they're showing the actual fake stream of them on Mars, which is literally in the next room, or they're at least within the vicinity of where this control room is at NASA. And they have this whole big monologue about how far away they are from Earth because they're on Mars allegedly, and that because of this distance, they're actually aging at a different rate. So therefore, they're kind of in the future in a way. And which is kind of true if you go by the physics of how, you know, time travel or space works and the light year distances, they actually are in the future, but they're not really because they're in the next room. But this thing that they say to the whole country, you're in another time from us. But it also makes me think that there could be some deeper connection where this is, in my mind, a metaphor for the Apollo 11 moon landing, not this fictional Apollo Mars landing. So they really are in another time from us, and they're actually showing here's how and here's why a fake anything might have occurred. So it's a threat on the family. It's because they need to boost morale for the US. It's because they need to cover up the ill-gotten gains and profits that some huge corporation made based on making a bunch of BS widgets that didn't even work because it would have killed them all if they actually tried to use it, right? So those are all very practical reasons why someone might fake an entire NASA program. And I really do think that this one little line is kind of nodding towards that a little bit. And then
let's just look at that again before you move on. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is connected to time. And the name of the shuttle is Saturn v Apollo. So the time frame is also connected to them controlling the timeline, because if we think we went to the moon, we're in a time frame in our mind that we are way advanced in a future timeline that we're really not. Not to say that we don't have advanced technology or artificial intelligence and everything is going fine. Nanotechnology, I think in the next couple of years, we are going to crack the code in our exochromes, in our human genome, of how to stay alive for 200 plus years. I think we're going to solve a lot of diseases with artificial intelligence and exochromes. But to say that we have the technology to traverse physically bodies to other planets, still a little bit far-fetched for me. But in the minds of everyone, the timelines are misconstrued, and we don't know what actual timeline we're in right now. So it's interesting that you brought that up, that he said that.
There's another good weave here too, that if you read this literally, you are inside another time from us. And one of the popular sort of visualizations of Saturn is Kronos, and Kronos is eating his children. So it's almost like you could almost read this like you are inside of another Kronos from us, meaning that they're all in like their own respective dimensional Saturn gods, right?
Yeah, and I always looked at that mythological story of Saturn eating his children esoterically as another higher dimension eating a lower dimension, a higher dimension eating a lower dimension. And Saturn or Kronos representing that higher dimension, not wanting that lowest dimension to be, have what it has at the top. So it's like the hourglass theory. If I let everything down here, all the content of the hourglass is now poured at the bottom. But if I wanted to keep it at the top, I'll keep everything up here. So Saturn was devouring these lower dimensions because it didn't want those lower dimensions to have some of what falls into from the top to the bottom. So I think that's the same narrative here, them keeping a lid on that and putting in our minds within the timeline that we're somewhere else in advance of technology, whatever, exploration, space, all of that type stuff. And another thing that stands out, Mars equals 201 in Gematria, the big Illuminati number. Mars in Latin Gematria. And shout out to Thomas for developing our occult decode.com, you guys.
Yeah, let me bring that up.
Make sure and show them the new chemical.
Oh yeah, so this is a new feature. If you don't know what this is, occultdecode.com. It's a free Gematria calculator. And for the record, I know almost nothing about Gematria that I didn't learn from Ani or from Tommy or from Slick Dissident or a bunch of other people, but I do understand math pretty well. So I get how the math works. And I kind of made this because I wanted it to be mathematically accurate. I'm not going to call out any specific names or websites out there, but there was a lot of Gematria calculators online that were just straight up mathematically inaccurate, which to me, when I discovered that, I was almost offended on behalf of countless, thousands, maybe millions of people that have been using these things and doing all sorts of readings and prophesizing and not knowing that the math was wrong, which feels important when you're talking about Gematria. So you can go in here and type in any of these. So like Ani was just saying, if you type in Mars, he said the Latin Gematria was 201. There it is right there. And one of the features that I added to this site, which is 100% free for now, is that you've got this little options next to the Gematria calculator. And this, the first option that I've added, represents a whole bunch of cool things that I'm going to be adding. But you can click it on to show chemical elements. And once you do that, now if there's any sort of chemical element that currently, if its atomic number or its place in the periodic table match the number that you typed in Gematria, it'll kind of show you up here. So if I turn on a bunch of other ones, for example, in septenary, which is at every 7, I believe, it counts up to 7, then it resets back down. That would match Mars to aluminum. Or if in Chaldean, Mars matches to neon because it's number 10. So I don't know exactly what you would do with this, but I do know that I've seen Tommy going all sorts of really cool weaves where then you'll take the word neon and aluminum or whatever, and then they'll start linking to each other. And all it is I guess it's almost like if you were in a court case and this is the lawyer like trying to present the case, and it's like, and here's more evidence, and here's more evidence. And then once you get to like 60 different ways of decoding the same word or the same concept, and it keeps linking back to itself in all these different ways, that's kind of how I see this. So my idea for this occult decode is over time to present as many different tools as possible for people to make all these different connections. So yeah, shout out Occult Decode, completely free. I hope that people find it useful.
Yeah, we appreciate that very much. And yeah, what he does, go to Royal Chemistry, the Royal Chemistry table, and you can click on the number of the chemical element, and it'll tell you the history and show a picture that's connected with it. That's very occult. Each one of the pictures on the Royal Chemistry table is very occult.
I'll have to add that, start adding all the old symbols and even like the alchemical symbols. And I know it, you go back enough in history, each of the chemical elements also had an alchemical symbol that was usually some sort of a planetary or more obscure, depending on what kind of grimoire you're looking at. So more coming, but that's where a lot of these decodes happen. And I wanted to show a couple other ones too, that this is in that same monologue, and they kind of juxtapose this with how obvious of a lie it is, but they're just talking about truth. And they're basically saying that these guys out at Mars living in the future, which is all lies, but that this is the American truth. And as they're saying this, you clearly see that it's just a huge movie set. And this movie set, just to give Stanley Kubrick a little bit of extra credit, they don't really make any implications in Capricorn 1 that Stanley Kubrick's involved in any capacity. In fact, the technology and how convincing they make the soundstage, they don't give it any time at all. They show it to you, and this is all you really know about it. Whereas a lot of other moon fake movies or NASA fake movies, they do go at lengths to show you, okay, here's how we're going to make it look real. Here's how we're going to match the delay. And here's how we're going to make the people look like they're floating in zero gravity. And what I think is interesting about Capricorn 1, since they don't explain any of that, they just straight up take it for granted that the audience already knows all the stories about how NASA Apollo missions were faked. Like, they don't need to know about the 3M front projection screens and any of that, because by the time this movie came out, it was almost ubiquitous, the same as the JFK assassination having CIA behind it. It was just as ubiquitous that at least there was a meme, even if you didn't believe it, just like OJ is guilty or OJ is innocent, whatever. Like, the memes existed, and they were so much more potent than any truth could have been. So I just think that this scene and this movie is such a great representation of how ubiquitous that concept was. Like, oh, of course we faked the moon landing. Yeah, there's a million movies about it now, you know?
Right. And I've been watching this TV series called Evil, which I'm going to be doing. I think I'm going to do a full decode on the CBS television series Evil. And they were talking about some of this of how they incorporate certain goetic sigils to really hone in, like mimetic magic. They have a episode. I sent it to Donut. I think we should, or you guys should do a decode on the demon of memes. And they went into the algorithm of how people can get caught up and possessed by looking at certain algorithms. And I find myself late at night sometimes when I'm trying to look into information, I might just stare off and look through, a couple of apps, and I get, possessed. If there is certain memes or certain things, the algorithm will find it for you and put it right in front of you when you're scrolling through Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they'll put right in front of you what you're looking for.
This is a popular one, is Belphegor's Prime.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this is basically 10 to the 30th plus 666 times 10 to the 14th. And the reason why it stands out is because it's basically a palindrome prime number. So it reads the same forwards, this long number, as it does backwards. And directly in the middle of this number is 666. But this one is actually known as Belphegor's Prime, and it's depicted by an upside down pi symbol. I always thought this was a wild concept.
That's crazy. And Belphegor is an actual Greek mythological beast that I looked into.
He looks like every math teacher I've ever had, to be honest.
Well, yeah, but they show like that picture right there. They show the actual corporeal form of these entities, or they trying to, make a concept of what these beings will look like, and they're like sucking the life and making people do stuff to go viral. Like they're possessing them and making them do things. And I think this even goes and plays into the movies and the industry, that there are higher forces involved that are making them put us into these illusory themes that we look through how reality is today. Because I look at modern movies and TV series as the modern hieroglyphics of this time. And I think if you look at enough TV series of today, especially if they have the occult in it, you're going to find a lot of connecting themes of what's happening right now.
I think I agree with you 100% on that too. That modern movies and Hollywood, essentially, they are kind of modern day mythology, and I would say that conspiracy theories in particular, that's sort of grassroots mythology. Conspiracy theories, they don't require you to get a whole panel together and raise funding and get a producer involved and get editors involved. So
Right.
it's almost as if you just had an idea, you don't have to turn it into a movie or a book or anything. You can just have that idea, and that's kind of where the conspiracy theory world sort of takes over. And I really feel that is modern day mythology, because no one's sitting down and writing these big epic poems about gods anymore, but they are writing these about demons that walk among us, and how Joe Biden is a demon, or how Hillary Clinton's summoning like dark entities from other worlds, and that takes on a whole narrative and a storyline of its own that could very well persist. Look at the Baron Trump, right? And the John Trump being possible time travelers and linked to Nikola Tesla. I mean, this is over a century ago, and it's still relevant now, and it's going to basically take over whatever any real modicum of truth might have been, whatever real rational approach. It doesn't matter anymore, because that gets supplanted by this cool newer story. And I think that's kind of the story of mythology, period. Like, whoever came up with the very first story about Zeus, I bet it was okay. You know what I mean? It was like maybe a 5 or a 6, but then someone else came along and they embellished it, and man, that one really hit. And then that was the one that was like, hey, Ani, tell us that story about Zeus again. Nah, paranoid, you said this one back. Ani tells it better. And then after you do that so many times, it just becomes, these things that, oh, my grandpa told me about that, and his dad's dad, and his dad's. So I think it's the exact same thing, including with all these moon landings and everything. All they really have to do, and there's a really good case in the new movie Fly Me to the Moon that came out, and I think I'll be doing a decode on that with Tommy. You're invited too when we do that one. But
Yeah.
they make a good point that they in that movie they take that space is real and the NASA program's all real, but all the photos that they're taking would be underwhelming. So if they actually put out, oh, here's a photo of the Earth from the moon, and people would be like, oh, it's kind of blurry, like, oh, it's not really impressive. So of course they go and they Photoshop together this really, really cool looking one. And it's sort of the exact same thing that we're talking about here. Because it's story, the hieroglyphics of today being media. Yeah, of course, it's like whoever tells the best story, that story wins, even if it has a little embellishment in it.
Yeah, the mythology comes. You can get that in Gerald Massey's books. The etymology of mythology is motu, and motu means truth. It means truth by story. So a lot of people look at mythology or myth to be something false. And yeah, Gerald Massey, he's ostracized because he went in there and he told the truth about, you know, what was going on in Egypt and these ancient civilizations. So now they don't really even bring him up that much. But he's telling you that today basically is cinemamancy. They made what's going on in media and what's happening on TV from, you know, looking at these characters like Trump and Kamala Harris. All of these people are now in their own movie, and we're witnessing these characters, like you said, like going back to the whole story about Nikola Tesla's work being in possession of Trump's uncle. All of these narratives come out, and it's even weird because Kamala Harris's father name is Donald. It's all of these different connections that envelop and becomes its own mythology. It serves to have its own story that follows a occult type of agenda, where they're tweaking these people as a magical experiment to twist and bend how we look at how these people are, almost like they're gods back in the Greek paradigm. I think Trump, anybody on television as a celebrity, political figure, or public figure in the minds of most people, they're looked upon as a deity in these times. And we really put a lot of energy and emphasis of them being deities, but they got the prototypes from mythology to the movie stream, and now they've made the reality into the movie.
And I was looking up to some of the modern NASA programs. They still name everything after deities, which I guess it makes sense because it's like the highest honor you can give. But one of the questions that came up in a show a while ago, but I've never been able to drop it, is that why would you name the moon landing program about going to the moon, but it's called the Apollo missions? Why would you name the moon missions after the sun god? And on top of that, there's now a NASA program called Artemis, and NASA Artemis is sort of like a female-led NASA program, or it's kind of like DEI for space in like in a slight way. But ironically, Artemis is the actual moon goddess that is the counterpart to Apollo. So there feels like a very direct connection where someone is implicitly trying to make something happen, or at least, you know, rub two things together and hope osmosis happens between the old Apollo mission named after the sun god going to the moon, and now the Artemis mission where you're sending feminine energy to the moon goddess. It feels important. I don't know what is to it, but it's not just happen chance. It doesn't feel arbitrary in any way.
You know, Apollo that's the god or the deity that carries the sun on the chariot, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I've looked at that a couple of ways of why they do it. It could go back to lineages of people that's connected to these elite societies, secret societies, whereas they're putting the funding behind these things, and they're actual cults of Apollo that goes deep into history of sun worship, because sun worship is actually phallic worship, and a spaceship is a phallic. It represents a phallic penetrating the sky or the heavens, and the heavens are representing the yoni or the yoni. of that phallic going into space. So I think it represents, especially the type of shuttles we got today with what's the guy that was doing the space missions, the one that had own version.
Richard Branson from Virgin Galactic.
Yeah, his shuttles and Bezos shuttles look
Yeah.
exactly like phallic. So they made it extremely, and those are the modern ones that we know of that everybody started to pay attention to. So I think the Apollo thing is definitely the chariot aspect, and it also represents that they're not really going anywhere. If you think about watching Hercules growing up, you've seen Apollo in the sky. They're just going from one side to the other side of the planet.
I guess you mentioned Branson and Virgin Galactic. This is actually one of the weirder projects that I worked on when I was at Disney. Is that there's this place out in New Mexico. It's called Spaceport America, and it's this very occult looking building. This is an aerial shot of it. But yeah, it kind of like blends into the terrain a little bit. It's very hard to see if you didn't know exactly what you were looking for. But Spaceport America, the whole premise behind this place was that if you were one of these people that could get onto a Virgin Galactic plane with, Branson and his homies, then you were basically dropping $200K. I think that was around the going price at that time. So they were thinking, why just build this really expensive, like a literal spaceport, and then only have these rich people come to it when we're leaving all this money on the table? So they were trying to turn Spaceport into a little bit of like an attraction slash like a tourist trap in a way, where you could go in for $50 and then see someone that spent 200,000 go up into space and see him come back down, and that you would just pay to see that and then do some little trivia games and buy the mug at the gift shop and all that. So they hired Disney in order to get some of that Disney magic to appeal to people so that they would actually want to spend money and treat this like it were some kind of a park experience. But this was all just privately funded by rich people. They just want to play with crazy high technology. And I always wondered when we work on this project, because the idea was that you get into one of these Virgin Galactic planes and you don't necessarily go to space, but you do go into orbit or suborbit, these suborbital flights.
Yeah.
And the ultimate idea was that if I wanted to fly from Florida to Australia, instead of a conventional plane where you would go up into the air and then, fly laterally until you find your way there and then land, with Spaceport and with Virgin Galactic, the idea was that you would just fly straight up into the air and then you would hang out in orbit and not exert any energy whatsoever. You're just hanging out in orbit in zero gravity. I'm simplifying this a little bit. And you would wait for the Earth to just turn so that Australia was under you, and then you would just let yourself drop back down. So instead of flying anywhere, you just fly up, you hang out for a little bit, and you fly back down. And that was going to be this new innovative way of doing all sorts of travel. And it still could work. People talk about the space elevator. I don't know if you heard about this.
The what?
There's a theoretical space elevator. And
space, yeah. They're building it.
The premise would essentially be very similar, that why would you take an elevator to space? Well, the reason is that you would take an elevator and you would wait for the Earth to rotate under you and then come back down out of the elevator to show up wherever you wanted to show up without actually having to travel anywhere except for up and down. So that
sounds like Tower of Babylon type stuff.
Well, that's what I'm getting to, is that this all feels very, very esoteric and occult. Like that doesn't seem like it's all that much more efficient, but it does seem way more esoteric.
It's definitely always esoteric. Whatever they get involved, especially if it's Disney, you already know. I'm like, oh God, you mentioned Disney, and you already know that they
you got the money. If you got the money to play with Disney, then yeah, you've got the money to do all sorts of things that even a rich person wouldn't, because at that point you're almost like a global conglomeration that supersedes just any individual person or even family.
Right. But yeah, that's very interesting, the stuff you brought up. and I think they will succeed in some of that. I think that whole space ladder, I've seen some research on it, that they're trying to develop something so you can go to the atmosphere, look down. I know we got some flat earthers up in here and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
we don't
rob
know.
the taxpayers. I agree with that. Yeah, that was the whole
Yeah,
Spaceport America was basically somebody found a nice loophole slash gap in the budget, and they were like, "Oh, if we just come up with this thing." I mean, that's why New Mexico was targeted, specifically this place called Las Cruces and Truth or Consequences. That's a name of a city in New Mexico, Truth or Consequences. And
what?
that, yeah, and I feel like there's probably a whole dive you can do just on the name of the place where they put Spaceport, Truth or Consequences. Isn't that wild?
That's wild, man. Like, what the hell? In New Mexico? Yeah, but
I'll pull it up while we're talking.
yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of other stuff I was looking at from the movie as well. Oh, that's True Consequences right there. Oh wow.
Yeah, Truth
Is
or
there,
Consequences.
do they have a logo for the city? Yeah, let me see the
Yep.
logo or the seal. Hmm.
It's a dude golfing, it looks like. It's I want to say three snakes in a canoe. I'm sure that's wrong, or it's like a bread with steam, and then there's either
Oh,
a bridge. Yeah, it looks like a bridge. I'm not sure. I actually never looked at the seal for Truth or Consequences before. I just thought it was a really weird name.
yeah. Sometimes you look at these seals and where they at. You can find some other stuff that's weird that's connected with it. But I've never heard of that place. That's interesting though. But I know Albuquerque is very connected with the occult. Kenneth Grant actually went there, and the other guy that wrote the Gift of the White Stone, he lived there for a little bit too. So there's a lot of strange things going on with that area. But yeah, that's the guy that I wanted. Do you remember his name? Because they just made this guy disappear after he figured out that the
He was the
signal.
one guy at NASA that was actually doing the math in that little room and was like, "Wait a minute, this doesn't sound right." Because yeah, this dude, I'll look up what his name was, but he was one of the actual NASA scientists in the room, and he was just checking the strength of the transmission as they were filming on Mars, and he realized that the power of the transmission meant that they were way closer than what anyone else was letting on. And he tries and goes and tell the government guy, the NASA director, hey,
Mhm.
there's like something wrong with our equipment and we should be concerned, or they're completely off course or something. But he started alluding to that, they were basically on the planet, like they were on Earth. They weren't in space at all. And he knew about it because of his readings. So he goes to a bar and he's talking to one of the reporters that's working on some other sort of story. And he tells him this, like those signals couldn't have come from 300 miles. And as soon as he says that, the guy gets a call. The guy that he's with, that's the journalist, he gets a call. He goes to get the call from the bar. And when he returns, this dude, you just never see him again. He just completely disappears.
The call was the distraction. This call, because when he was on the call, I was trying to look at it. I was very sleepy, but I was like, why is he, what is he talking about? And the call was some random person asking him a random question. And he's like, yo, all you got to do is go do this. Like, why are you on the phone with me? He dismissed the person. And then when he turns around, this guy is gone. Then the next day he goes to his apartment complex. And he's been going to his apartment for a very long time. And there's somebody else living in his apartment. And then he goes in, he said, hey, I even know what's in this apartment. I know the whole entire blueprint of the apartment. Yeah, this is him there now. I've been here a million times and everything is different. And I think this is how they do this type stuff. And they can do it in an instant where you don't even, you could blink and everything's different. And they even got a paid actress there to act like she's been there, and they have the receipts that she's been there for a year. I
Yeah,
thought that
so
was
this is probably one of my favorite scenes in this entire movie, and it's such a short little scene, but again, it just goes to show how thorough they were. As soon as they made this decision that this guy was going to get cleaned out, so his friend or this journalist acquaintance shows up at the guy's apartment, and he's been there a bunch of times before, and this lady's there, and she swears, no, I've lived here forever. And when they go inside, all the furniture is different. They painted the inside, but he goes over to her coffee table, and on the coffee table there's like 7 or 8 magazines, and every one of those magazines is all addressed to her at that address, like just conveniently has the perfect proof that no, I have been living here for years, I've always lived here. And the level of gaslighting they drop on this guy was pretty impressive. Like that, it just shows the amount of sophistication. And again, this movie being released and just not even explaining it. It was a fairly short scene. He looks at it, you see their address, and you put 2 and 2 together immediately. You don't need a tutorial or a whole breakdown, but you only understand it that quickly because of how believable and how ubiquitous this type of gaslighting by the government is. It's so incredibly believable that it doesn't require a whole lot of explanation.
And it's almost scary. If you think about it, if you come on to something that the government is doing, you can just disappear. And everybody, if they, don't think the narrative of what the media or the news saying, they can end up disappearing, because they actually ended up coming after this guy. They tried to disable his car. His car wouldn't press brake. It wouldn't stop when he pressed the brake. Yeah, this is his car going off the bridge here. He couldn't stop. Luckily, he survived. Going.
I don't know how. They kind of implied that he wasn't coming back from that, but then he just shows up in a scene again.
Yeah, well, he swam away, and I don't know. He probably wouldn't have survived that, but he is continued to be pursued. They even got him arrested for cocaine possession. Never did cocaine before. Then he got fired from his job. It was all type of stuff that they went to the extremity of trying to keep the secret of that guy disappearing. And he kept trying to tell the editor of the newspaper, he's like, hey, my friend is gone. And he's like, oh, your imaginary friend and everything. So even the people that he trusts the most is looking at him crazy, and he finally catches on. He starts to catch on that they're trying to hide something.
And I think that by the time they take out the NASA dude, and you were asking what his name is, I think they literally just call him the commander guy, or like the control room guy. That's his name in the IMDb credits, is control room guy. But he goes, and once control room guy gets taken out, and once they try and take out the journalist, then I think at that point they've already decided they're going to take out the astronauts as well. It doesn't matter that Brubaker was going to maybe, tell his wife. I don't think any of that mattered. It was already in the works. And they do, I just mentioned, they call him Brew. Like his nickname in the whole movie is Brew, which it just kind of funny because Brew is also somewhat of like a recent development to call people. So it's weird how it lines up. You know what I mean? Like this old nickname lined up with a new one. But this is the exact moment when they're showing everybody's different, I guess, like EKG or their heart rate or something they've got wired to them, and they decide, okay, here's where we're going to pretend that the heat shield goes down, and you can see them flatline. So this right here is the version that gets broadcast to the world, essentially, is that because this little line is no longer making little bumps in it, that this guy's gone, and everyone just accepts it immediately because, we've look at the line. The line wouldn't lie. You know what I mean? I just thought it's fascinating at how little information. Just look, a line goes from jaggy to straight, and you now believe that this guy's existence just is no more, which is pretty damn powerful. And then he realizes it immediately, right?
Yeah, he does.
And OJ is like on board immediately. He's like, oh, would you say they're killing us? Yeah, actually, that does make sense. But he's just saying we're dead. And this is such a wild scene because he's saying it in a couple different ways. One, he's saying it like, yeah, they're going to come after us, they're going to wipe us out. But also at this exact moment, because of what's going on out in the exoteric world, like here in the esoteric world, they literally are dead. Like they've been announced as dead to the world, and that's kind of all that matters is what the world says. So if the world says that you're dead, you're dead.
Right. And while he's doing it, the other guy is making the announcement to the world. Like literally, while he's saying that, he's on television right here
Yep.
telling everyone that these guys are dead. It's interesting. He also played Abraham Lincoln too, the actor.
Did he really?
Yeah, he played Abraham Lincoln too. So it's interesting. So he's just tied up in conspiracy and stuff.
And this is their last ditch effort. So between these frames, at this point, when the astronauts realize that they're being set up, they escape. They break out of the room, and one of the, I didn't get a screenshot of this one, but Baru, he's wearing a medallion around his neck, and I had to zoom in and look really close, but it's basically Saint Christopher, who's sort of like uses like a guardian angel in a lot of contexts. So he actually takes this silver medallion of Saint Christopher, and he uses it to take the hinges off the door and escapes from this little Masonic lodge, or sorry, I mean a little meeting room that they're in that has no windows in it. And after they escape from this little Masonic lodge, they decide to split up into different directions.
Yeah.
And none of them goes east, right? Because they came from the east because they were in a Masonic lodge here without the windows. So they split up in all the other directions. And there was this point later on in the movie when he finds out every time the helicopters find one of the astronauts, he says, what direction were they headed away from the plane that they stole in order to escape? And once he figures out all the directions, he's like, oh, well, I know Bruce going west. I know that because he wouldn't go east. And I just kept wondering, like, why wouldn't he go east? Well, that's because that would have been straight back to the Masonic Lodge, which is not where he wants to go, because they're kind of escaping and trying to disclose this information that was previously hidden by these guys. So I thought that was kind of, and look, we came from the east, right? So they literally say in the movie more than 2 or 3 times. They keep referencing how important these cardinal directions are to them. And then again, on a weird Masonic note, the guy that killed these 3 guys, he now goes up to one of the wives and he starts talking about how he feels like Jack the Ripper, which was also assumedly like a Masonic serial killer episode. So here again, we've got the Mason that is on a serial killing mission. Literally, he's trying to take out these 3 moon men. These 3, kind of, I would say like initiates, like they escaped the lodge during initiation, and now the worshipful master is coming after them.
You know what? Now that you say the moon men, I've been doing videos on the moon child. And I've been thinking that a lot of these characters, why they are selected, like why were these 3 even selected for this particular program in the first place? I think even with celebrities, politicians, and other people, actors for specific projects, I think all of these people are moon children. I think they're magical experiments. And going back to the show Evil, they were showing that a lot of people in vitro fertilization, a lot of women using vitro with their eggs, that the demonic houses in the television series were actually implementing the seeds of these abnormal children into these women to be birthed into the world and to carry out the assignments of the demonic houses. So the children grow up and they don't know why they're influenced from a mental psychosis state of mind to do these evil things. So I think that was a play on what a moon child is, and everything is connected somehow with moon symbolism when it comes to certain Masonic and other type things connected with Saturn. So I believe that a lot of these people were born for a task, and they don't know as they grow up that they're a part of a magical operation that's happening, and their whole life is a ritual up to the point that they're sacrificed.
And I got to shout out Tommy, who's doing decodes in the comments. He's killing it. Capricorn 1 equals 49, Stern Ritual 49, Antichrist 49, which is April 9th, which is when DMX passed away, Lil Nas X's birthday, Prince Philip. So yeah, Tommy's always killing it with all the Gematria decodes. If you don't follow Tommy Truthful, you should click on his profile and go and follow him too.
Right. Another thing I noticed was that the connection is these spaceships going to the moon and Mars. Both moon and Mars in Gematria equals 57 and 51 in the period ciphers. And if you look into the Kabbalistic description of the number 51 and 57, start with 51. 51 means universal time. So it goes back what you were talking about with the time connection. And 51 is the Hebrew letter Samek. And Samek means to uphold. Samek means that the lie has to be upheld. That's why Mars and the moon are the most two focused planets that we're looking at. I mean, despite the fact of them saying the surface and the connection with the surface and everything, but Samek, its ultimate meaning means to upbeat, to uphold. And 57 symbolism, after every 57 years, by the way, the phases of the moon return to the same hour of the same day. The word moon is mentioned 57 times in the Bible. In Hebrew, 57 is yom, meaning a very long time. And I think that connects to space voyage because it's supposed to be a very long time or whatever they're trying to implement there. And it also means something that has to be at an exact time or a specific time, which is the specific exact time is the faking of their deaths after lying to them in the American people where the shuttle would land on that specific day, and then changing and saying that the heat shield malfunctioned.
And here's another one of those scenes where they're putting a lot of emphasis on the directions that they're all headed,
Right.
and it's really odd too that they're almost implying that they went in true north, true west, true south. You know, they didn't have to figure out what the coordinates were. It was just head in this exact direction, which I don't know. It feels like anomalous the way that they went about it. And
Right.
then this guy, here's the reporter that is trying to figure all this stuff out, and he makes this connection too, where they're now talking about the JFK assassination. So
Funny.
again, it goes to explain this ubiquitous feel that if you're watching this movie and you're in on it, if you showed up to Capricorn 1 on opening day with just a tiny little modicum of understanding about, you know, how propaganda works, then this was directed at you. They're letting you know, like, hey, just like the JFK assassination was all a bunch of bull, so is this perceived conspiracy, but also the person watching the movie about the conspiracy that's connecting those dots is probably also able to extrapolate this to a real space program or a real NASA program. So I like that because they don't treat the audience like they're idiots in this movie. It actually gives you a lot more credit that, you know, you're in on all this.
Right. It
And
does.
then here he is eating the snake that you were talking about before, which
Yeah.
felt very symbolic. Like this is how he survives, is by eating a snake.
In a cave, so it connects to Plato's cave as well. And he's eating the snake, and in NASA in Hebrew means snake and means deceit as well. So to the great deceiver, the serpent. And when you think of NASA, NASA is nothing but Satan spelled backwards, because they say what? T minus. T minus means minus the T. So if you spell NASA backwards, T minus is Satan. And they
I like
always say
that.
that. Yeah, that's all it means. They're telling you T minus is they're minusing the T from NASA, so you don't decode that NASA represents Satan, and the Satan is not is metaphorical, allegorical to it being deceit, to deceive, a secret society, a sovereign government, whatever you want to say. Black Lodge is in here and installed here to deceive and to curve how we look at the timelines in history.
There's some other ones too, man. Like him with the snake in the cave, them inside of that windowless room, which I was calling a Masonic lodge, the different directions. There's this scene too where the reporter, and if we take this as like some sort of Masonic retelling, at least loosely, this scene where the reporter breaks into where they originally were holding these guys, and where the moon landing stage was set, it's again in this huge windowless kind of lodge room, and you can see this person that's like breaking in. They're basically literally putting light into the darkness, and here he is as he walks through it, and this is where he finds that little medallion of Saint Christopher right here. It's kind of hard to make out because it was motion, but I was able to freeze frame it and kind of clear it up a little bit. It's 100% a medallion of Saint Christopher, so I thought that was interesting. And then here's one where a little bit of a stretch, but I really felt like this might have been part of it. They run up this guy. You got this one too?
Yeah, I got this one. I know you're about to go.
So maybe. So they run into this guy, and he's the one that owns the plane, and they're trying to kind of haggle, or the reporter's trying to haggle with this guy. So again, if we say that this is masonry, the reporter is kind of a ruffian. He's a Cowan. He's a non-Mason, and he's trying to figure out the secrets of masonry, or he's trying to track down these three entered apprentices, or these three initiates that have escaped the lodge room. So this guy who's wearing a hat, which I want to say he's kind of like the leader of the lodge in some way, but his hat has a big H on it with a big star, and I was like, maybe that's Hiram Abiff. Maybe this is like the Masonic guy that the ruffians come after for his knowledge. And then it also has these double A's behind, which he says is him. And then there's also in another scene afterwards this T, which is also the Tau cross, which is also fairly big in masonry. This is that staff that Moses holds up, which has what on it? A huge snake. So I just felt like my mind was like playing a little bit of jazz. You know what I mean? These are some of the notes that were in the song, but I might not know what the exact composition was, but it's got all the elements there. You've got Hiram Abiff with this hat and the star on his head. You've got the Tau cross relating to more degrees in masonry. You've got this entering the lodge room as a Cowan, letting light into this windowless room. Everything, the directions, it just kept adding up and up. So, and I know I'm looking at this through like Masonic colored glasses sometimes. But it just felt, again, if I was presenting a case and I was a lawyer in a courtroom, like this is all my evidence that I'm presenting to the jury. So what did you have on this guy? Oh, did Ani freeze out? Well, I was supposed to play this a little bit earlier, but we were jamming so damn hard on Capricorn 1, so I guess this is a perfect little segue. This is the whole reason that we're doing Capricorn 1 and a whole bunch of these other shows on the moon is because I'm dropping this new comic book called Never a Straight Answer, NASA. It's 40 different pages. It's about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo missions, and it's got all this kind of decode symbolism baked all the way into it, along with references to every single Stanley Kubrick movie that I could squeeze into this thing. It truly is a love letter to people that like Kubrick or conspiracies or decodes. And I'm going to play a quick little intro that'll kind of give you more information on this. And hopefully Ani will jump back in. So after this is over, we'll go right back at it. Hey, thank you for watching / listening to another episode of whatever you're listening to. Paranoid American Podcast, Occult Disney, Paranoid Programming, Sound Science. There's a bunch of them, but whatever it is, I appreciate that you're listening / watching to this right now. And if you really want to support Paranoid American, if you didn't know this, in addition to being a podcast, we've actually been publishing comics since 2012, so over a decade. While I was still at Disney, I started this company to publish a little book called Time Samplers, and it's exploded into 60 different titles at this point. And the biggest one just launched, at least at the time of recording this, but it's at nasacomic.com, stands for Never a Straight Answer. And it's about Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landings. And I just want to show you some of the cool kind of exclusive things you can get by backing this thing early. So if you go to nasacomic.com, it'll automatically bring you to this Kickstarter page. And you can see, bam, hit our goal at the time of recording this, 100%. So it's definitely going to be made. So you'll absolutely get a copy of this thing if you back it. If you're listening to this in the future and this page isn't here or brought you somewhere else, then likely you can just buy it right now. So just you have to skip all this and just buy the damn thing. But here's a couple little previews of artwork. Here's different variant covers that are for offered. This top left one, I actually have in print. I got a couple of prototypes printed up just to make sure that it would look good. It looks great, looks amazing, full color, gloss pages. It's got a nice hefty weight to it because it's 40 different pages of all unique art that you haven't seen before. There's also going to be a variant cover. There's going to be a foil, hollow foil cover. And then there's a little postcard print that anybody that gets a physical copy of the comic in any form, they're going to end up getting this postcard size print here. Here's some different artwork samples from the 3 different artists that contributed to this book. And then here's the important part, the rewards. So by backing this project, you're going to get to pick some different kind of reward tier. The entry level one is this digital deluxe, which has the entire book in digital form. You'll get a PDF. It's also going to have an additional 8 different pages that aren't in any of the print versions, just because they were maybe some were a little too spicy, maybe some were a slightly different art style, but I'm going to give all that in the digital deluxe, along with some wallpapers and some MP3s and stuff. If you want the print one that I was just holding up here, then the entry for that one is $15. With that, you're going to get that little postcard print I mentioned. You're going to get a trading card. You're going to get a bookmark, and you'll probably get some other stuff because I always throw in extra freebies. You can ask anyone that's bought anything from Paranoid American. I hook it up with lots of extras. If you want the variant cover, which is only available in this campaign, there's a $19 tier for that. It also comes with an extra sticker. If you want the hollow foil, then that one is $29. These ones are going to be super limited. Like, these won't exist outside of this campaign for the next 30 days. So if you are listening to this in the future, sorry you missed out. You might be able to snag one in an upcoming campaign if there's extras. But if you really want this hollow foil, and you should, you can get it right now for $29. And then we've got a couple other tiers after that. We've got a 55th anniversary special for $55. That has the main cover and the foil cover and a sticker sheet and some other goodies. Here's the best value, basically. There's a $99 Cosmic Conspiracy tier, over 40% off of all the different things that are included. So this one's going to come with the main cover, the variant cover, the hollow foil cover, 3 or 4 different sticker sheets. It's going to come with 6+ stickers. It has the trading card, a bookmark. It has a custom Paranoid American Room 237 keychain. And I think the highlight of this is it's going to come with this custom embroidered Stanley Kubrick patch based on the Apollo 11 design. And there's if you keep scrolling down, you can see all the other extra reward tiers. All of the different items are going to be described in more detail. And I want to show you this patch right here. It's a 3-inch embroidered iron-on patch. You can put it on your Molex bag. You can put it on, anything, hats, backpacks. This is the first time we've ever done one of these custom patches, so I'm really excited about that. There's also a custom fake moon landing playset that you can select as an add-on when you go to checkout. So speaking of, let's say that you're sold. You want to get a copy. You want to help support Paranoid American. You haven't used Kickstarter before. The easiest thing to do is you just click on this project button on the page. It's both at the very top of the screen and it's at the top of the page. So you can click either one, back this project. And from here, it's going to be like a typical checkout. You're going to select which of these different tiers you want. Again, I highly recommend this $99 Cosmic Conspiracy combo. It's going to have every single thing that the campaign has to offer that's exclusive to this NASA book. You click on that, you pick the country that you're in, and then you just click on the pledge button. There's one extra last step where it's going to ask you if you want to do any add-ons, if you want to throw in like a trading card pack or another keychain or anything else. You can get some huge discounts on the backlog of Paranoid American comics. But let's say you're done with that, you click continue. And then finally, if you don't already have a Kickstarter account, you'll be prompted to make one. You can link it to Facebook. The rest of the flow is just like any typical checkout online. So I really appreciate if you would take a look. Please just back the comic, back nasacomic.com. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Yeah, that was timed perfectly because Ani just joined, so we're back. It's like nothing ever happened. And I was just asking, what was your decode of this this dude in the hat?
Oh, the A and A in the back. You know, on the plane, the A and A, the Ostrom Argentum, and Aleister Crowley's lodge.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I didn't even put that one together. But yeah, so this is basically like a Thelema lodge, right?
Right. Yeah, I just saw the layman. I saw the Horus wings on the side of both A's.
You're
And I
right.
thought because he said AA, and then on the plane, when the plane is in the sky, it has AA on it. You know, so I just automatically in my mind just thought that.
I don't know if you cut out, but I was basically saying that maybe this is Hiram Abiff with the H on his hat, and also in Lodge, the worshipful master is the only one that gets to wear a hat in Lodge. And then we have this Tau cross over on the side as he's entering this little back office, which I guess I'd also call that kind of like a lodge room, I'm going to assume. So all those different little connections, and then the Tau cross also connects back to the snake symbolism, because that was the scepter in which Moses had, the brazen serpent, essentially. Whoever had the biggest snake wins.
Yeah, Tav is serpent Hebrew with a V, and it's also upside down delta. So it's the delta right there, and that connects to Aramos, to the A and A. When you see that upside down delta triangle, that's the goddess of the A and A lodge, or the OTO lodge. I'm saying A and A, but OTO, which is connected to the A and A. So
So that was felt important. Like, this guy and everything about him felt like a really important, pivotal moment in
it
this.
was.
And that essentially it was pivotal, because if it weren't for this guy giving the reporter access to this plane, or I guess flying it for him, then
Yeah,
he actually gets to show up with the remaining astronaut, because the other two got caught and I assume killed. That's kind of the premise. So Brew makes out alive, and here's the final shot of the movie: is they're at his funeral and they're reading his eulogy, and the wife is crying, and everyone's gathered around. The government is giving the highest praise, and then here he comes running up with the journalist, and the movie just ends here. It doesn't even show you what the aftermath is once it's revealed that it was all this big inside thing. So I like how it kind of ends like that and leaves it a little bit ambiguous.
me too. Somebody also pointed out the orange the guy has on. Orange is 33 in Gematria. So
Oh yeah, shout out Midnight Cipher for putting that one out there.
So shout out for that. So yeah, I think it was a great ending. I don't think they needed to go further, because I don't even think that would even happen. No way you make it out of that situation and reveal to the world that these people faked your death and you were supposed to die on a space mission. So it's very, very interesting things. But overall, I thought the movie was very much greatly encoded. I didn't know how big the cult following was, but I figured out it does have a big cult following. And these movies like this just proves. I don't know why we get so um, turned away when someone presents a conspiracy theory about this government. The whole entire country is based upon conspiracy. Conspiracy conspires is a group of people planning to do something to another person or another group of people. So if we are saying that we have these elite groups, pulling strings and orchestrating stuff to sway things towards their way of how they want everything to be ran, then I don't even know why conspiracy is a thing of a word that people can laugh at and say, oh, that's just a conspiracy. So movies like this just prove that the narrative is that they're continuing themes like this, and people don't believe, or they either do believe in what they're trying to tell you, which isn't really true.
And the way that this ends too, it presents it, at least to the people in the movie, not watching it, but like the actors or the fictional people that exist in the movie. You can't refute this conspiracy theory. Like, here's the guy alive after everyone's told you was dead in the official news. So this is kind of the perfect light you could ever shine on a conspiracy theory. Would be, oh, someone's dead, and then the guy shows up and he's like, no, I'm not, I'm right here. Like, that is kind of the best way that you could counter that. You know what I mean? Every other version of dispelling a conspiracy theory is like, All right, sit down. Do you have a couple months? All right, let's go over all this really deep information. Whereas this is just like straight out there. And I gotta say, shout out
Mhm.
Five Loafer for gifting 5 Paranoid American memberships. And you're right that I kind of snuck it in there, but I'm out of the penalty box, and I was able to monetize, so I got membership on the channel now. And yeah, if anyone gets the high tier on the channel, I will make a completely custom song for you based on whatever lyrics or theme or anything you want. I'll fully produce it. I'll listen to many variations until I get a good one in the classic Paranoid American fashion. So I don't know how long I'll do that, probably until it becomes overwhelming. But for now, if anyone joins the Illuminati tier on the YouTube member, I'll make you a little custom song. And thank you for gifting 5 different memberships. So I guess I'm doing 5 different custom songs this week. So shout out 5 Leaps Over. And right now I do have one members only video. It's a behind the scenes video with me and David Charles Plate of Syncflix, and we basically are hashing out a pamphlet we've been working on that has to do with the Golden Bough and breaking down Aleister Crowley's Thoth tarot deck, but all within the premise of Stanley Kubrick characters. So basically, we take the characters in The Shining and characters in Clockwork Orange and characters in all of his different movies, and we use those to explain the Golden Bough, which is very deep and sort of a dense topic, but I think we're doing it a little bit of justice. So you can go and see what goes into some of the planning behind that right now if you got a YouTube membership. So 5 Leaf Clover and the other 5 people that snagged it, good on you guys.
Yeah, that's dope. And yeah, Thoth is the moon god, so makes sense. But one last thing I want to add for the movie, uh Hiram Abiff resurrects, right? Is that the story, or because I think about the 3 ruffians? Do they represent the 3 ruffians, or?
Yeah, that was my take, is that these 3 astronauts, they're let into the inner lodge, right? The lodge room is basically this room that has no windows. So here they are inside the lodge room, and they get all the secrets of masonry bestowed upon them. And then they decide, after they've learned all the secrets, like, we want to get out of here, but we're also dead. Like, we're dead if we get caught. So they escape the lodge room, and that these 3 ruffians, and then here's the journalist is also sort of like a non-Mason, but that the very ending of this is that Hiram Abiff, to answer your question, yeah, Hiram Abiff gets taken out by the 3 ruffians because they ask him for the secrets of masonry, but he won't give it to them, so they have to kill him for it. And they obviously still don't get it from him because he's dead at that point. And it is a resurrection story, although it's not so direct in that they go away and all of a sudden Hiram Abiff is there again. But what happens is an acacia sprig grows out from where he was buried, and that kind of gives away, and that's where they're able to call in the Law and Order forensics team, and they're like, aha, here's the body and here's the proof. But the acacia sprig is the real aspect there, because the acacia sprig, that represents this sort of concept of immortality, or at least reincarnation. So in that way, Hiram Abiff is sort of transmuted into the acacia sprig, which conveys, I guess, like the essence of masonry. It doesn't die with the person, and it keeps growing. That's one of the many different esoteric interpretations of that Hiramic legend.
Yeah, and that's the Osirian drama. So it's connected to Osiris and the
It's
Egyptians.
nothing new, man. That's like Freemasons didn't really come up with a whole lot of original material. It's, if anything, it's like a really good mixtape that someone went out and they put like a lot of good tracks, and they were able to theme it really well, but it's not necessarily like an original composition.
Right, right. But I was going to say that the Egyptians would take acacia, the acacia plant, and that was like their weed of the day. So it's just funny.
There's a book that I highly recommend. It's called Philosophically Stoned. I think that's what it's called. And the whole premise of that book was that not just the burning bush that gets brought up a lot when people talk about psychedelics, but the acacia sprig of Freemasonry had DMT in it, and that there's some interpretations that the origin of Freemasonry and all the secret teachings and knowledge might have amounted to their use of DMT that they found in the acacia sprig, and all the other mythology and symbolism kind of built up around that. and then sort of overshadowed it and swallowed it to the point where now nobody realizes that that was the real original source of this info. And that's why they basically say the lost word of Freemasonry is because no one really knows what it was supposed to be about or what the original lessons were, and everyone's trying to figure out what that was. And that would make sense the same way that I bring this up too, where the Sacred Mushroom and the Cross by John Allegro and a bunch of other people, but that the Christian Eucharist, and when they do the transubstantiation and it turns from a cracker and unleavened bread into the actual body of a god that you eat, that might be like a leftover of a much earlier practice where they were eating mushrooms and you were actually eating the body of God and communing with spirits and all this stuff. But over time, they buried it so deep that even the people that were at the top didn't realize that there was a different message to it. And after hundreds of years, now you just go and you eat a cracker and you drink some juice, and it has kind of like lost a lot of its meaning. So I think that there might be some correlations between that and the acacia sprig and a lot of other stories. Burning bush is another really good one.
Yeah, I think Dr. Amin Hill does some of the best work of piecing together what you just said, that in actuality, most of these stories, he wrote a book called The Chemical Muse, that all of this stuff is about psychedelics and that these people were on drugs. He actually thinks that Christ in Greek translates to drug. And there's a lot of wild stuff he says as well. But I think there is some truth, because my spiritual awakening really started to take a different turn when I started to venture with psychedelics, sacred blue lotus, acacia, changa, and different things. So I think there's something rooted in the exochromes of plants, of transferring information all the way back to the beginning of whatever we call source that connects to us. And I think the psychedelics is some of the secrets that they want to hide. And now it's been demonized because CIA and different people have utilized the psychedelics to do other things with it. But I completely agree with everything you say, that there's some stuff going on with that they don't want us to really understand, and few people in between understand it. But
you brought up Blue Lotus, and I remember in the 90s, I found out that was some story. It might have been like a Manly Palmer Hall or something, but somebody had mentioned that Blue Lotus was the psychedelic of choice of the ancient Egyptians. And like I went online and I found some website and ordered a bunch of Blue Lotus, and I tried everything. I tried smoking it and turning tea out of it, and like it never did anything for me, but I was really hopeful that it would.
Sure
it was probably either I was doing it wrong or it was probably just not the same Blue Lotus that everyone talks about.
Oh yeah, I've done Blue Lotus. There's an acacia tree. They did acacia too. You mix acacia, Blue Lotus, and you take Mimosa Hacilis and you extract the dimethyltryptamine out of it, and you blend it in with rose calendula. It makes a crazy psychedelic type of thing that you can.
That makes way more sense, that you might mix Blue Lotus with something and not just take it completely on its own. But again, I mean, I think I was like, literally, I was 14 or 15 reading this on the internet and ordering it off the internet. And this is back when you could order almost anything off the internet. There was like not a lot of regulation going on. So, you know, better times. And someone asked, where's Tommy at? Yeah, he usually is doing these. In fact, we got one on Friday. And if I didn't know Tommy was going to be around right now, otherwise he would have been on this one. But we're doing Fly Me to the Moon on Friday, a very similar decode. And we're going to go through and screenshots and everything. So I'm trying to do every moon movie that I've found out about. And I guess we're winding down a little bit here. Me and Ani are also going to be breaking down a movie that I saw one time with like one eye open, like I was kind of half paying attention, but I remember enough that it was good enough to at least rewatch. But it's called Moonwalkers. So if you guys want to go and watch Moonwalkers, so when we do another live and we talk about it, you've got, you know, your own input on it. But it's also about Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landings, and it's got Ron Perlman from Hellboy in it, and also the guy that's got a bunch of idiotic hot takes on Twitter, same dude. And it's got Ron Weasley from the Harry Potter movies in it. But it's legitimately a weird, crazy, like there's psychedelics involved and all kinds of things. So I think it'll be an interesting watch. So we'll be doing that one again soon.
Looking forward to it, brother. Looking forward to it.
So give some more shout outs where people can find on. I know that a lot of your people are in chat, so you're talking or mostly to your people, but also tell my people where they can find you and what you got going on.
Sure. You guys can go over to my YouTube, Ani Osaru. Come on over to patreon.com/THE_spiritual shade rooms, the True Occult newspaper. Camophys Academy is my school where I teach at. And Instagram, Ani Osaru as well. I'm also on Twitter too. You guys follow me on there. And basically what I have coming up, I'm going to break down a lot of things, especially dealing with certain events that transpired with Kamala and some other stuff. I'm doing a video tomorrow on that on my Patreon. And on Sunday, we're bringing Kalini on, who is our Yotishi, our Vedic astrologist, and she's about to do an interview and expound on all of the astrology that happened with the Trump assassination attempt, Kamala Harris. So you guys really, if you want to get all of that information of how it plays out with the luminary bodies, very much so make that video on Sunday.
And shout out my Cherie, always dropping all the links as people are talking about it, perfectly in time. Always in sync. So thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The video's on Wednesdays on the 31st. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
So I mean, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Come back for the next one. We do Moonwalkers. We're doing Fly Me to the Moon. I've got Operation Avalanche that I want to end up doing. There's a whole list. And if there's any Moon movies or Kubrick related movies that you want to see decodes of in the next few weeks, post them in the comments, send messages, whatever. We're going to get to do all of them. And I think that this Sunday we might do Full Metal Jacket and do all the different esoteric symbolism. You're invited to that too, Ani. If you want to come along, I'll send you a link to that.
Did y'all do Clockwork Orange?
We have not yet. No, we didn't do Clockwork Orange yet.
Okay, we got to do that one. We got to do that one for sure.
Okay, well, book. So come back and hang out with me and Ani when we do Moonwalkers. We'll do Clockwork Orange. And then, yeah, Friday, I'm doing Fly Me to the Moon with Tommy. Sunday on Sync Tank, we're doing Full Metal Jacket. I'm going to keep them coming. And it seems like the live streams, people have a lot of fun. There's a lot of interactions. So I'm going to keep doing these as much as I can until it's time for me to go back into my little hermit hole and not come out for a few months.
We love it, bro. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for this.
I appreciate you. All right, I'm going to leave everyone with some ads. Ani, I'll see you for the next one, man. Thanks for spending some time with me as always, brother.
Yeah, have a good one. Peace.
Y'all.
Ready for a cosmic conspiracy about Stanley Kubrick, moon landings, and the CIA? Go visit nasacomic.com.
nasacomic.com, CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on. That's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com. Oh, nasacomic.com. CIA's biggest con. Stanley Kubrick put us on. That's why we're singing this song. I'm nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Go visit nasacomic.com. Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
Never a Straight Answer is a 40-page comic about Stanley Kubrick directing the Apollo space missions.
Yeah, go visit nasacomic.com.
This is the perfect read for comic, Kubrick, or conspiracy fans of all ages. For more details, visit nasacomic.com.
Spread the word with propaganda packs, all for just $40 shipped at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
These huge all-weather slaps will last in public for years to come. Remind citizens that birds are not real. Self-immolation is an option, and might make you magnetic. Do your part and get a propaganda pack today from ParanoidAmerican.com.
Got paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
What are you waiting for? Go to ParanoidAmerican.com right now and get a paranoid propaganda pack.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, matters the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bombs distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.